I'm about to see a movie that I can barely believe is real, and now, well,
here I am.
Batman vs. Superman is a movie that has had a ton of controversy surrounding its trailers, and for good reason. But it is not a standalone film. Whether you like it or not, Batman vs. Superman is a sequel to Man of Steel. And Man of Steel took many ideas from Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, which spawned the sequel, The Dark Knight, which is considered to be one of the best comic book movies of all time. But how do these two origin stories stack up against each other? And what does that mean for Batman vs. Superman? That's what I'm here to find out. Man of Steel was definitely not a movie I was crazy about after the first time I saw it. And after, I didn't want to and didn't see it again for a while. I was far more hyped for its trailers than I was for the actual movie. A lot of things didn't sit well with me about the movie, and a lot of people felt the same way. But other fans absolutely loved Man of Steel. After I heard why people liked it so much, I came around and understood why this movie set up a certain kind of Superman that they could enjoy. A new kind of Superman. But fans are still torn between whether this is a good movie or a bad movie, and honestly so am I. So I'm not here to discuss that, a lot of people have already tried. But I'm here to discuss which is a better origin story. Batman Begins or Man of Steel. I won't know if Man of Steel can spawn as good as a sequel until I see Batman vs. Superman, but here is my chomp down for Man of Steel. And I'm gonna chomp it down into 5 categories: heroes and villains, surrounding cast, direction, themes, and impact. Henry Cavill as Superman is, let's face it, great casting. There's so many stories about how hard he's worked for the role since Superman Returns. His Superman aesthetic is on point in a new way that isn't cheesy. I think his voice is a little too soft for Superman, but that might just be because he's hiding his accent.
Surely any underwear is Superman underwear. Who's your favorite Superman? If I'm wearing it.
But he is a great Superman and plays him very well. Yeah, I definitely didn't buy that though. Characters are important to me, especially in an origin story. And they really put Clark's character through a lot in this movie so that we can see how his character is going to further with his moral code and other things about him. But how will that all pan out in the sequel? Michael Shannon as Zod, while I do really enjoy him, is kind of extremely held back, but also extremely cartoonishly evil. It's hard to explain his character, and it's also hard not to laugh, honestly.
I will reclaim what you have taken from us.
I will find him. I will find him, Lara.
I will find him!
He sounds like he forgot to take out his retainer, and I feel like that's intentional for the movie. I know Michael Shannon has a peculiar voice in real life, but he sounds like he's playing Fuzzy Bunny. Together their fight, while overly destructive for sure, and should have obviously been moved by Superman to another location where it wouldn't be like 9/11. But it was his first battle, and Zod is a general, but also Zod doesn't know how to use his powers yet because he's pretty new to them. But at the same time, Superman was hurt, and yeah, I'm just gonna move on from that rabbit hole. But we do have an inexperienced Superman, which is an interesting thing to watch, and it's also very important. And about the ending, the neck snap, well, I think it's really poorly done. Just run! Run! Just get out of the way! Get out of there! Superman, cover his eyes! Fly him away! Just move! Get out of there! Move him! Move him! Just shift him! Just shift him! I think the decision to have Superman kill the only other Kryptonian was a pretty interesting decision. And bold. It's definitely going to service a story in the future, but I still think it was poorly executed. I don't think we've learned enough about the Superman to really understand where he's at this point in the movie. And after that, all we really get is...
What are you smiling about, Captain?
Nothing, sir. I just think he's kind of hot.
Ugh. But we do get a good look at the struggle of Superman in his isolation. Alright, let's do a quick rundown. Mama L is a fierce warrior who can literally face an explosion expressionless, but a well-shot death is its own reward. Russell Crowe as Papa L stays around for way too long, but he does make a pretty good in-house GPS. Diane Lane actually does pretty wonderfully as Martha Kent, really feeling the motherly love towards Clark. But when we get to Michael Costner as Jonathan Kent, I liked some tender moments he had with Clark. But when they talk about the idea of saving Clark's classmates or letting them die, he is way too stiff. This is too big of a decision to make, and while they do try to play it like he's trying to decide, he seems too determined to tell Clark to let these kids die. Stiff and unsure just aren't the same things in my eyes. And his death, stop my invincible son. I get he didn't want Clark to reveal himself, but this is just ridiculous. Clark is a big boy at this point. He can handle himself. He didn't need to die. The dog could have escaped. Clark, go, go, go. Save him in a second. Literally, speed of light. Lois is a different thing altogether though, because at the beginning, she is a strong character. She's talking sass, not taking anyone's crap, And then she just falls into Superman's arms and starts saying lovey nonsense like,
You know, they say it's all downhill after the first kiss.
in these three, them being survivors, Steve Renazzani's story was more believable than this. Snyder wanted to get the Nolan feel from the Dark Knight series. I get that. And Nolan was even his producer. But I have issues here with the direction because the out-of-order plot doesn't service the story the same way that Batman Begins did. It is much less inspired and it just jumps around haphazardly, not going to any specific time for any specific reason, but to just show us certain moments in Clark's life. I like to see him traveling the world. I like to see him as a kid. I like to see him as Superman. But I want the moments that we see to be justified for being there. The action, which Snyder should do really well on, while it's awesome, is done not only with shaky cam a bunch, but with this weird Snyder zoom feature, a whirl, a twist, a zoom, but I don't like when we're shown less just to feel motion. I get that it helps the impact, but I want to see Superman punch. I want to feel Superman punch. Seeing it and feeling it and hearing it are all different things, and this is a visual media. And now when we get to the themes, I think is where we start to really muck up this movie. There's too many themes, introduced by too many monologues that go on for too long. And a lot of them don't go anywhere or end up being important at all, or they're just completely broken. Superman is supposed to be the connector of worlds between Krypton and Earth, but he says Chompt Krypton. They talk about Superman being the key for humans to understand alien life, but at the same time, Papa Kent wants to keep him on the farm forever for his own protection. Do you feel me? Also, I'm very sure that being confused with all these themes will carry over to the sequel, but not exactly in the same way. But it will surely have an effect on the movie at the least. Dealing with all of Batman's dark themes and Superman's godly themes, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, fans are divided on this film. For a lot of people, it seems it just isn't the Superman that they're used to. Their Superman would have moved this fight somewhere else, he would have saved his dad, he wouldn't have killed Zod, but he did do that before, so maybe he would have. Mute argument, I guess. But this movie introduces us to a new Superman, Zack Snyder's Superman, who is darker than usual, but also completely misunderstood in a way that we haven't seen before, and that will lead to good stuff in Batman vs. Superman. I may not be Man of Steel's biggest fan, and it may not be hailed as a masterpiece like Nolan's movies, but it set up a solid Superman that is going to be put through a test on the big screen that we have never seen before, fighting the Batman. So, for that reason, Man of Steel is a solid origin story, but as a quick grade, I'm gonna give it a B-. That's not what I'm giving it as an origin story, we'll discuss that next time. But the big question is, how does it compare with Batman Begins in terms of being the better origin story? Well, head on over to the last piece of this puzzle to get the third part of the series. If you haven't checked out my Chomp Down on Batman Begins, you should totally check it out for the other side of the battle. But thank you for listening to me ramble on. If you've made it this far, then you're officially the #1 fan of the show. And if you continue to watch, subscribe, and like, you will soon be inducted into the Chompt Secret Society. But more on that next time. Later, fam, I'll see you soon.